It's that fast. How you doing?
Hello.
Did you get your hair curly? I don't remember your hair being curly though.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, are we on the air? Okay, welcome
Maybe
back.
Didn't cut it.
What?
I'm filling in for someone else. What am I supposed to
Well,
say?
see, here's what happened, Rob.
Who are you?
Okay,
Wait.
so what happened was,
Oh,
like, we
Rob.
were expecting another band or something. They haven't showed up, and then we were just playing a song, hoping something would happen. And just as
There
the
you
song
are.
ended, you walked in the door.
And you get to have your
So it's like-
horoscope read.
Do you? Do we?
don't know.
Yeah. What side are you,
Gemini.
Rob? Gemini.
Gemini? Interesting. I just read Gemini. It's a good one.
I never met a Gemini I didn't like.
Yeah. Geminis
you?
are all right.
Eh, you want
Are you
me
going to read it?
I'm not
Are you-
gonna read it.
what,
I'm
you're not
shy.
going to read it?
No.
Come
I
on.
can read it. I don't
You
want
can read it to me.
All right, Rob. Since we're,
Are we on air?
of course, we're on air.
We just had that whole thing
It's a
on air.
seamless show. Seamless.
Which is awesome.
Let's see here. Gemini.
Yes.
this
This is Rob Helmer.
Mark
and his,
Mark Harris's novel Bang the Drum Slowly. No, in Mark Harris's novel Bang the Drum Slowly, professional baseball players cheat their fans out of money by engaging them in a card game called Tag War. Isn't that a series of books that William Shatner wrote? Oh no, that was Tech War. Okay, which is an acronym for the exciting game without any rules. Judging from your current astrological omens, Gemini, I'd say it's prime time for you to play a more ethical version of this game. Strictly speaking, the game can have rules, but they may be changed at any time, and new ones may be added as needed. The object of your brand of Tag War is to have as much smart fun as possible without anyone getting hurt. And again, the William Shatner references keep coming up because remember, I don't know if you're an old Star Trek
I'm
fan,
not a
Rob.
Star Trek fan.
Remember that time they went down to the gangster planet and James Kirk had to play cards to fool his captors, and he made up a game called Fizbin.
Oh.
I don't
Oh
remember
yeah,
that one.
you do?
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've
So we're
No.
supposed to be ethical and follow the rules, but have fun. Is that what that's saying?
I don't know.
The
I
world
wasn't.
is your
I was just
oyster.
reading. I wasn't really
Oh.
registering it.
I have to say mine was a lot more exciting.
Well, we got something ethical to speak about, so there you go.
Well, let's.
We do?
That's a perfect segue. So let's get into that because you're here to talk about a new project that you're working on, right?
Yeah, there's a project that's actually started about 3 years ago that's kind of coming to fruition, and it's called Conscious Parenting. And there's many ethical things about that. So basically, we've created a community of people that are already working with this population of soon-to-be parents and new parents. And we have a bunch of we're offering courses, and in our courses we're offering information that's not available in other prenatal courses. Most of the other prenatal courses are focus on management of pain or the birth process itself, but don't really look at how to help new parents in this daunting task of raising a child. So we look at different things from how to raise your baby green and sustainable, how to keep balance in your life, looking at development of child, but not just like usually it just focuses on the baby's going to be this tall and they're going to talk
Right.
this much, but they don't really focus on emotional development, social development, spirituality, etc. So there's a bunch of things to be discussed that no one discusses, and that's from my own experience being a parent as well. And then we combine it with looking at alternative forms of healthcare, and what are valuable, what aren't, giving people information. And then we have a section called Too Much of a Good Thing, where we talk about TV and antibiotics and vaccinations, and we try to give so these are just a bit of tidbits of information that we're sharing, and we have a community of people that are experts in their field, whether it's doulas or birth coaches or midwives or people that are specialized in treating pregnant women with massage or postpartum care, etc. So it's a community of people that are already in the environment. And then we also have Amy Sedgwick from the Red Tent Sisters, who's going to be doing sexuality and pregnancy and postpartum as well. So we kind of have this community of people, counselors, that have joined together for this project. So
Sorry, how long has this been going on, and can anyone access this? Because part of it sometimes is, there's so much out there, and sometimes people can't afford it. So how would this be available to people who need it?
So we have a course starting June 28th, and the first class, the first program is 5 classes, And the first class is free, so people can try it out. And if people can't afford it, then they can pay what you can. So we're trying to make it affordable for everyone, but also we have costs as well. But we're trying to make it so we can balance it out. So we're playing around with that of how we can make it affordable to everyone.
That's great.
As well. So, but like I said, it is, and also all of our classes where we want the couple to come or partners to come, or if they're single parents to bring a person with them, because it's all about building community and building a network of people to help you, because a lot of people burn out from parenting. Relationships are destroyed because they're trying to do it all themselves.
Right.
And this is partly to do with cultural dilemmas, dilemmas that parents have today, and that is that, myself, I live 2 hours from my parents. So before we went from tribe to extended family to now you live 2 hours away and you don't have anyone's support and you raise your child. And so this is a bit of a problem. So how can we set up maybe not a network of family, but a network of community, whether it's shopkeepers or different people in your life that can support you with cleaning, or whether it be, baby care itself, and maybe it's activating the partner to help out more to avoid burnout. So one of the big things we talk about is attachment parenting, which is breastfeeding, co-sleeping, or sleeping near baby, baby wearing, such as this, belief in babies cry, so not letting them cry it out. So this is we have very good resources. So that's one thing, is how to connect new parents to resources in the community. So maybe we don't know where the information can be found, but we can send them to a hub in the community that can help them. And so it's really not about selling products and stuff like this, but more just letting people have resources so that if they do get in trouble, let's say breastfeeding, or they have a colicky baby, they have somewhere to turn. So it's not like they're up at 2 a.m, baby's crying, they're like Googling where to find help.
Yeah.
We have a resource of help for them. So
that's great.
It's to save them time and money long term.
It's essential, because I've been in that boat. My son's going to be almost a year. I'm a single mom, and my family's a little far. Not that I have a big one. And there's a lot of questions that come about all the time, especially now too. There's so many shifts happening so fast. You question yourself. Even if you think you're doing okay, there are days where you're like, am I doing everything wrong? And not everyone has people with other kids around them or resources to go to, or you don't know where, because there's too much information. And personally, I like to go a little outside the box, and I think there's a lot of crap information. So I'm looking to connect with people who are a little bit more with experience. And
that's what it is. All of the members, I think, but 2 of them have children. So we have, same-sex relationships. We have parents that are divorced. We have couples that are together. We have people that have raised their children from pregnancy on all by themselves. So we kind of have a experience with different scenarios, and that's helpful. Like, how do I do it myself? How do I keep the balance? How do I not burn out? Myself, I'm separated and I have a 6-year-old. So for myself, it's how can I help other couples with relationships so that maybe they don't burn out and maybe they don't separate. So it kind of gives a platform for people in our group to share with others, to help others, because it's not easy.
Absolutely.
In you brought up a good point with, let's say people are having children later. Let's say they're 35 years old, they're having their first child. They're a single child. Maybe they have one cousin that's older than them. So they haven't been around babies since they were a baby. So then it's like, here, you have a baby and you have no experience. And then let's say your partner's saying, well, why don't we have a midwife, or why don't we have this? And it's like, whoa, I'm just out of my comfort box. So it's about, that's what it's about. Like, how can you assist people? And you could have people that are very open and so forth, but then if something comes up.
Well, because you don't know. If you haven't experienced this, being open is one thing, but you don't know. Like, I'm one of those people who had a child later on. I was open to lots of things, but it's all new. You've never done it before.
Absolutely.
Having kids around even might be helpful at some point, but until you have your own, it's a whole other ballgame.
Absolutely.
You make a good point there, Rob. In the older days, where the parents live closer to the grandparents, and people talk about it, that it's almost more natural for the grandparents to look after the very young kids while the parents are still out working or doing what they have to do, right? And
Or people used to live together, which at some point it might go back to that.
or even, I mean, and I was fortunate, and I don't know if my parents planned it this way, but like we lived with my grandmother, and my earliest memories are with my grandmother, and
That's
it was
nice.
and it was really because the grandparents are mellower.
Oh yeah.
And they totally just
They're relaxed.
They're relaxed with the kids, right? And sometimes the parents aren't so relaxed.
Except for mine, but yeah. I can't say the same thing about my mother, but yeah.
So and you're describing the problem living in large cities today, and you are so far away from maybe the grandparents, and the families aren't together anymore. The parents are split. The grandparents might be split. And I guess that's one of the motivations for you doing this.
Absolutely. And so another thing is that the science of parenting has replaced the art of mothering. You know, it's an art how to care for, but it's like, okay, here's a science. So let's, wear our babies, but we're going to wear them facing out, and it's kind of like babies like vulnerable and it's like kind of looking out. So it's like, oh, wearing babies is smart, but let's wear them facing outwards. And it's kind of scary, right? So it becomes, so the mind makes a decision. So also what we're doing is, as a mother, you knew stuff intuitively.
Absolutely.
You knew. So part of our whole underlying current of this whole thing is, trust yourself. You know what your child needs. But how do you get to that spot? How do you connect with that spot when you have like this person saying this and that person saying this? But you really know. And so another thing is, honoring that parenting is important, especially the first 3 years. And then so that's kind of the biggest thing, is kind of honoring that, and then trusting yourself. So we have a section called Trusting Yourself. We look at the dilemmas, but then we say, there's a Chinese quote by Lao Tzu. Let me see if I remember it correctly, but it says, "The snow goose need not paint itself white, and you not need to do anything but be yourself."
Right.
So you just need to be yourself. You have this child for a reason, and you just need to be yourself, and then get the support you need. That's like key. Is you cannot do, no matter how great you are, you're not doing it yourself, and you will burn out. Because people that burn out with mothering are people that want to provide everything.
Right.
Those are the mothers that burn out, not the people that are like whatever. No, they're the people that try to overgive and don't, are spending a week without showering because they can't, get time to have a shower type thing. So, so it's really, that space. Intuitively, and that's the important spot to say, we can back this up with, intuitively, you want babies sleeping closer to you. Okay, well, for instance, children that sleep with their parents, less sudden infant death syndrome. They report it's better for baby in many other ways, right? It makes it easier in some ways if you're breastfeeding. So intuitively, that, but then society tells you to do this. And co-sleeping is kind of a thing where 85% of the world sleeps with someone else. But in our society, and let's say Australia and England, the United States, it's kind of not accepted. But everywhere else, they do it. So we have to kind of look back at how things were done for a very long time, I think. And then we look at science proving those things are good, and then your intuition, and they're all lining up. Same thing with, there's a great book called Raising Baby Green by Dr. Green with an E. And the same thing, you talk about sustainable living, how to raise baby green. Well, what's good for baby is good for the environment usually. So breastfeeding is better for baby, breastfeeding is better for the environment, and so forth. So we can do many correlations. So, eating organically is important in the first pregnancy through the first 3 years of life. Eating organic is better for the earth. It's pretty, it's, but we also have to look at how we can practically apply that in a practical way. So, for instance, with organic food, we provide a list through some of our resources of the 100 fruits and vegetables that have the most pesticides or so forth from being used. So maybe you choose the top 10 and you eat those organically, and then maybe stuff like bananas and avocados and stuff that don't seem to retain as much pesticides, maybe you can bypass them organic. Okay, so just if you had to choose, we have to be logical. Can't afford it all. What do we choose? So
Absolutely.
How to make it very practical for parents.
And those are the things that honestly do. Like when you care, that's the stuff I think about all the time. because, you know, Avery's been eating organic and I try to do it all right, but you can't get it all right. So it's about making the right choices and not feeling bad about it.
Yeah, not
and
feeling
doing your
guilty.
best with it.
Yeah.
And
that's all your children will ever expect from you, is to do your best.
Yeah.
And I think every parent does their best. But what resources they have. So what we're trying to do is give them more resources and make them more aware of things.
Right.
But they'll still always do their best. So if you have more resources, then maybe you can do better. But parents are always doing their best, as a general rule.
Yeah.
You know, they might not be aware of a lot of things, and they might
True.
think certain things are acceptable that aren't from society point of view, but they are doing their best.
It is, though. The intuition is huge because the kids start picking up on it, too. They always do, I guess, but it becomes more evident as they get older. So it's important that we just kind of relax and learn to trust ourselves, which most parents are struggling with, because your child is picking up on, and I'm recognizing that myself with my relationship with my son.
So why do you think people have a hard time trusting their intuition then in this particular?
It's because of I'm not going to blame everything on society, but it's like what you said. We've done things a certain way for so long, and all of a sudden we got disconnected from that, which makes you question yourself. So all of a sudden we've stopped believing in ourselves and our intuition and the way nature does things, and we've disconnected it like it's all different things. So more we understand that it's complete and we're part of that nature and the way it works, I think more it allows you to connect with your intuition again. I don't know, that's how I see it. And I find anytime something goes off in my life is when I question my intuition.
Yeah.
And anytime I allow it to take over, as I always do most of the time, everything flows well.
Yeah.
You know, and kids pick up on that, and kids know how to use that well or against you at times, you know? So I don't know. I like what you guys are doing, and it's very, very important. And this is the kind of thing I've been looking for too, because I'm reaching a point where it's like, okay, I think I'm doing all right, but sometimes I do have questions, and I'm at one of those times right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and you don't want to go 10 million places. You want to find one place that works well for you.
Yeah.
So that might be you guys. Where do we find you guys?
We have a website. Like a lot of the logistical things, this project was developed about 2.5 years ago, and but now we're kind of being formalized. So everyone's been working in the field for a while, but now we're just joining as a community. So you can find us on we have a website now, consciousparenting.ca, and there you'll go to the website. We've added some new people to our community recently, but you'll see, you can go to the bio and see who's part of our village, and you can contact them independently, or you can take courses or so forth. So that's the best spot. We also have a new blog, Conscious Parenting Toronto.blogspot, where we share information. One thing we're investigating too is because what's happening with setting the foundation is so important. So this is why I'm most invested in pregnancy through the first year. But there's also lots of great things happening for older children, or support happening for older children. So what's naturally happening in the movement is that we're getting other people that are coming into the community that are going to be able to help older children. So we might then develop courses for 1 to 5 year olds and so forth, and then 5 to 9 year olds. So there's, from nature programs, there's a great program my daughter belongs to called the Pine Project, pineproject.org, and they do nature programs in the city, and they teach about the environment and tracking animals and trees and so forth, and so and they also talk about mentoring, how mentoring happens from multi-generational, how that happens, and how mentoring and sharing with the elders is important and so forth. So they're involved in that. So that would be one thing that's for older children that people would be involved in.
Right.
And so getting these kind of resources together, whether it's maybe a company that, speaking to Grassroots, the store that has environmental products and so forth, and looking at how they can be involved to other things. So we're looking at expanding it as a kind of a natural progression, and then maybe just having gatherings where other conscious parents get together and share ideas, share resources. As being, or support groups for those things. That's kind of, I think, kind of the natural progression where you kind of feel like you're an island, but you're not. You're doing important things, and every little thing helps. Whether it's how you raise your baby green, any little thing. So it's not like an all or nothing, but how can we get these parents together So I think the biggest struggle for us is, so as a parent, and you survived the first year, how do you let other parents know that this is important information? So if I share the information we put together with people that are already parents, they're like, wow, that would have saved me thousands of hours, thousands of dollars. Absolutely. And you would feel better overall, you know, with what you've done, and it might just already click in and say, oh yeah, I did that, that was good, I did that, that was good. And it kind of connects with, you know, the truth of, you know, resonates with you. But the difficulty is, how do you give people that are in the, you know, I'm pregnant, all of that, what that entails, that's bringing up lots of fears and worries and about the birth process, and how do you share the information with them and make them aware that this is important with someone that's never experienced it, you know? So that's so that's the difficult part, and so that's why I'm here talking about it, is and we're looking to do more. We're happy to come and give intro to different groups, and connecting with our community is one way of doing that, but anyone else about this is what we're offering, and it's really coming from a good place. And the people involved, the community, it's not about getting more people, but the quality of people is very, very high. Yeah. We have one of our massage therapists, or the massage therapists we have two in the group, but one is Kyla Laxton, and she worked at a children's center for pregnant women and postpartum called the Ella Center. It was around for about 3 years. And she was the massage therapist, so 95% of her clients were just pregnant women and postpartum. So she's really passionate about that. And she also does some birth coaching as well. She's really passionate about that. But if you're pregnant, wouldn't you rather go to a specialist that's what they treated and that's what they know and that's what they're passionate about? And then we have another person, Tracy TF, that just makes natural creams and ointments for babies. So if that's something you want to do for pregnancy or also, you know, for children, then she does that. But our general program is just kind of introduce people to these things, and then if they want to choose to do that, then they can. They don't have to. So there's extras that they can choose. So they're not like, Hugh, if you're not going to baby wear, we don't want to sit you through, you know, 2 hours of baby wear, and we'd rather give a 20-minute introduction and say, here's an extra workshop that you could do on another weekend if you're really interested, where you can try on different slings and baby carriers and stuff like that. So it's to keep it where, and another thing with our group is there's no judgment. You know, if you don't do this, then, you know, if you vaccinate your child, you're not going to be outlawed. It's like, so it's the people in our group are very practical and logical. It's not like, oh, you know, the decisions you make is what you have to do in that moment. It's not like, oh, you did that, you know. I know that one spoonful of something wasn't organic, and there's lots of judgments and stuff like that. So it's about keeping it light and supporting them with whatever decision they make and understanding kind of where they're coming from.
Awesome.
You know, I'm just wondering, Rob, I mean, it's an awesome venture that you're undertaking here. I'm just wondering, because you're in it, you're doing this, and you're also a parent, you know, how do you think things are as parents? Are parents under more pressure now than ever? How do you feel? Do you feel that you're getting the support you need from the society as a whole as a parent? Or is it, you know, or is this one of the reasons why you're doing this? Yeah,
absolutely. I think there's not support. So, you know, I think there's more support in Canada than there is in other countries. For instance, in the United States, it's 3-month maternity leave. So even being in Canada and having that luxury of 1 year, if people can afford to do it, I think that's an important step. You know, if it was 2 years, it would be even better, you know. So I think society supports or doesn't support certain things. So I think, we're not getting support. So it's kind of looked down upon. Oh, you're staying home with your children for 2 or 3 years. It's looked down upon as being not a good thing. You know, and some, you know, it creates stress. So you could have one parent that wants to be back to work, and that's less stressful for them, and then another parent wants to stay home. So we also look at, you know, what's best for everyone mutually, and support that. And so there isn't support. There isn't support. Where are you going to get support? Where do you turn to? And some of the things that are in place, it has to go beyond what's currently available. You could have a midwife. You could choose to have a midwife, and they could be very supportive, and at other times they might not be as supportive, depending on the experience you have. And my experience was that they weren't so supportive. So my daughter's mom, she was the first one to breastfeed in her whole family, meaning the generation before no one breastfed.
Yep.
So that's like looked down upon. You know, it's like, why are you breastfeeding? And then if it goes beyond 6 weeks, it's like, why are you breastfeeding so long? And then who is she going to turn to support if it's not easy or it doesn't go smoothly,
Right.
like life doesn't, right? Then, you know, she had a friend that she could call. And I remember the midwife, like, week 1, milk hadn't came in, and the midwife had to go to another appointment because they're, you know, they're so busy, right?
Right.
With the way the system is set up. So then they left her crying. It's like me, I have no experience with breastfeeding. I
Wow.
can support her. And so there's a situation, right, created by society of how it's set up. You know, and there isn't enough midwives. That's that's good. So I'm not blaming the midwife, but there's not enough midwives and there's not enough support. So let's look at that scenario and then look at the scenario that we're trying to create. So we discussed breastfeeding prior to birth. Like some people think, oh, I'm going to
Very
breastfeed.
important.
And breastfeeding's happening more, it's more common to be done, but the length of time that it's done is not very long. The average amount of time could be a month or 2 months. It's very short. Something's better, you know, doing something's better than nothing.
Right.
So let's talk about providing people with a breastfeeding consultant that they can do if there's any problems, setting it up with maybe some possible doulas that they could work with, speaking to them about midwives. Maybe there's certain hospitals that are breastfeeding friendly. So if you choose to be in the hospital, they have to pass certain criteria to be a breastfeeding friendly hospital. My daughter was born in Hamilton, so St. Joseph's Hospital is the only hospital in Hamilton that's breastfeeding friendly. So they have certain criteria, like not having the formula, you know, companies sponsoring their
Right.
thing and so forth. So providing them with resources and contacts, not that they'll need them, but they have them, giving them resources about education, problem solving ahead of time, and so forth. So they're already set. So they're more aware ahead of time. They have resources if they need them. So that's kind of the difference between, you know, not having support from society or network, and then preparing people ahead of time and giving them resources. My friend just had a child, and he's an acupuncturist, and my background is in Chinese medicine, and I specialize in children. So that's how my professional life kind of goes within this project as well. And his is a good example because, you know, he's fairly knowledgeable, smart guy, very open to things, and they had their child. They had a home birth. Everything was fine. Everything went perfectly. Then baby got a little bit of jaundice. So then they had to go to the hospital,
Right.
Stay in the hospital for 2 days. Mother's milk was, with that stress, probably didn't come in right away. And baby came a week or two early, so mom had planned, because she's self-employed, she had a big contract where she had to do 1 day of work. And so you had all this stress, and then milk not coming in, and then there's total stress in the house. And who's supporting them? And so I provided them with some herbal medicine, so the milk came in, and then
Right.
a lot of stuff bypassed. But there was a lot of problems with breastfeeding. So then I was like, okay, connect. And then she also was having some back pain, so I'm like, connected her with a few people in our community,
Right.
and then things settled. But there was a lot, like,
That's a lot. around
it
that
is a lot.
time.
It's a lot of stress. And then maybe
Yeah.
mom if they're not strong, maybe they give up on breastfeeding. And then that has all sorts of that could lead to all sorts of things later on. If you breastfeed your child longer, there's less chance of certain diseases, many diseases. I remember seeing this poster in the hospital at St. Joseph's that said 101 reasons to breastfeed. And it's like literally that much, from your eyes to less diaper rash to less eczema to less asthma and so forth. And then there's also health benefits to mom. So in that moment, she could have, because of the stress, stopped breastfeeding, which many people would. Because not easy and don't have support, let's just stop. That was what I noticed in clinic, was there was a lot of people coming with, let's say they had an 8-year-old child, and maybe these things could have been prevented earlier. All right? And so, for instance, let me throw out a few things. For instance, research shows if you are pregnant and you go visit a farm with your child, the less likely your child will be allergic when they grow up.
Just to visit a farm?
Just to visit a farm when you're pregnant.
Wow.
So that's a good tidbit of information. Research shows that this is true. And that's a whole other conversation. If ear infections are the most common surgery done for ear tubes, they're the most common reason antibiotics are prescribed. But ear infections can be reduced by a third by reducing pacifier use, a soother. A third. This is research from modern medicine. So you can avoid your child maybe having as many ear infections. I think 2005, 2006, there's 30 million prescriptions for ear infections in the United States.
It's the worst infection too. I used to suffer from them. So
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So a lot of them can be prevented. And so this gets into a whole other conversation. But those are a couple of tidbits of information that preventively we can look at. So if I have a child that most common child is 6 to 24 months that will get ear infections. So you have a 6-month-old that has an ear infection or a year-old. Maybe these can be prevented, and that would be good information.
Absolutely.
Good information to have ahead of time. Or if your child does get an ear infection, is there someone who does herbal medicine or homeopathy if that's the way you want to go? Or we might want to inform you that research shows that 85 to 95% of antibiotics prescribed do nothing. This is modern research, so that might be good. And the treatment of choice now, because there's bacteria resistant to antibiotics now. And ear infections are the most common reason, so you want to look at proper diagnostic. And pain relief in the first 24 to 48 hours is the most important thing you can do. So giving them, it's very painful, giving them pain relief, but 60 to 70% of ear infections will pass. So if you just give them some pain relief, and then it'll pass on its own.
Right.
So avoiding antibiotics.
I have a good cure for ear infections, actually. Good treatment. I don't know if you know
Sorry?
this. I have a
What
good
do you
treatment for ear infections. What you do is you take salt, you put it in a frying pan with no water, just the salt, just the dry salt. Heat it up till it's hot, quite hot, in the frying pan. You put it in a paper bag.
Yeah.
It's really hot, so you got to be careful.
Right.
And then you put the bag underneath the ear.
I've never heard
and
that.
you let the heat, salt go into the ear. You got to be careful you don't burn the ear.
Right.
And it's instant relief, and very often, in my experience, it actually eliminates the infection.
I never knew that. We used to do garlic oil, do the same thing, warm garlic and drip it into the ear.
Yeah. Or hot and cold compresses back and forth.
Yeah.
So this is just a hot compress with salt, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that could be something where you might avoid taking antibiotics for that, and so that antibiotics, there's 10 to 15% chance you'll have side effect from it.
And for sure. And you're saying chances are it's not even doing anything anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's what it.
It's usually is it usually a viral infection, or I don't know.
Yeah.
And of course, antibiotics won't work on that.
Yeah. Most children, about 90% of children's upper respiratory tract infections or colds are viral. 90%. Yeah.
But why I don't understand why they prescribe antibiotics for that.
Well, babies. Okay. And this is what we talk about: is why do they? There's a section on. It's going to be coming out on our blog soon. It's when to give antibiotics. So it's just some guidelines. And so that's important to know. But part of it is, what's our role as parents? Okay, so we've never had a child, or a child's never been sick around us. They have a fever and they're not sleeping well, and we're not sleeping well, and we have to go to work, Hugh.
Right.
We can't take time off. And so we go into the doctor, and let's say you walk into the doctor and say, "Hey, my child's sick," and the doctor says, "Nothing we can do for you. It'll pass in a few days." What are you going to say? Maybe not so happy with the doctor, right?
Yeah.
And so this is part of they have looked at this and they've also looked at 40% of children that go to their doctor will get antibiotics, regardless if it's just a checkup and they're healthy or not. 40% of the time they'll get antibiotics, and a lot of times, people put it on the doctors, but it's actually there's also responsibility on parents,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
And so there's the way that parents convey things to the doctor is in the pressure that they put on the doctor, and I've witnessed this many times. And it's like, yeah, if you go to the doctor and doing this.
Right.
The analogy that and people often get upset with doctors, and the analogy I always used was this. Let's say you want to do something with your driveway. And so you call up the person who does concrete and say, what can I do with my driveway? And he says, oh, do concrete, it'll cost this much. And then you go to the person that does asphalt, and they say, oh, do asphalt, it'll cost you this much. And then you go to the landscaper, and they say, do interlocking brick, and it'll cost you this much. And so, of course, if you go to the doctor, a person that prescribes medicine, so it's important for parents or anyone to know that there's 3 choices when you go to a medical doctor. Medicine, surgery, or put up with it. Mm-hmm. There's only 3.
Right.
So if you're going to the doctor and you don't want any 3 of those, don't get upset with the doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's what he's doing, his job.
They're doing their job through their lens,
mm-hmm.
just like the asphalt and interlocking brick. So if you go there and say, well, this is the best treatment with you, and once again we go back to society. These people
mm-hmm.
are very busy, and they're spending short amount of time. So
right.
That's what this course 2 is for, is about maybe we can prevent some of these things, maybe we can be more aware. We're not being very radical, we're being very logical, like
mm-hmm.
these are facts,
mm-hmm.
this is not made up, it's
mm-hmm.
no conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we do the same thing when we talk about vaccinations as well, is that it's not, and I think there's a niche of people that are looking for this type of information and experience.
Absolutely.
Is that they're really, really looking for it. They're not one way or the other, but there's this middle road of people that are just want to do the best they can, and this information can be useful to them,
mm-hmm.
and that's the hope for the project.
Absolutely. And even with what you're explaining with doctors, is that often you think you make all these decisions, but people act out of panic. If your kids get sick and you don't know where else to go, what do? You take them to the doctor.
Yeah.
And when you have something like what you're providing here, it gives people ease. It's like, it's okay, calm down, think about what you're doing. There's other options, and people need more of that.
Yeah.
And there are simple ways. Like my guy he's strong, and he had the sniffles, a couple of times? What did I do? I squirted milk in his nose.
Yeah.
Made sure he ate well, and he stayed hydrated, and the next morning he's fine. And those are little tricks that people need to go find some place to learn, and you can take care of most of the things before having to even consider a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
It's essential.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That brings up a good point. The first time a child, because they have such little airway passageways, right? So the first time, and when they first come home, they have somewhat irregular breathing. So if you get a child with a blocked nose, the parent thinks they're dying the first time, and it's like, oh my gosh, my child's sick, and I'm like, oh, they have a stuffy nose. Yeah, how did you know? It's like the first time parent, you are. And you'd use milk, but also using salt water spray up the nose and unblocking the airway. Oh, they're actually fine now. And so, but those are things that you just don't know because you don't have experience.
Absolutely.
And so.
Yeah. So it's. So it's great. So do you have a big vision for this project, Rob? Like, it sounds like it's something that should be available to parents all across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Could the model, we're setting up a model here, but it could easily be, and the whole idea behind the project is to give a platform to share, and these things are already happening, meaning there's already parents doing it, so let's try to create a community. But it could easily be transplanted to Vancouver or Toronto or Montreal. Mm-hmm. All it needs is a group of people that are already doing it just to get together, and then it gains a bit of momentum. That's all it is.
And then you can start to archive all that information that maybe has less of a chance of getting passed down from the grandparents just because of the way society is these days, and make it available to everybody. Yeah,
make it available to everybody. And the great thing about it is it's a learning process for us going along as well, where we can add other things and, have you heard of this? Right. There's certain things that resonate with us as a group, or feels right to us now, but that can also change. You could have someone that does nonviolent communication, so you could have a person that just joined the group that worked with Jack Neufeld, and he has a book called Hold On to Your Kids. We do attachment pairing, but he has a whole other way of looking at it. So we're learning as we're going along too, and which is exciting, to get resources and to have available. For myself, I never had a child in Toronto, so for me, you know, I was in Hamilton for a year, then I was in England for 2, and I've only been in Toronto for 3. So I kind of know parenting from a 3 to 6 year old perspective in the city. I don't know 3 and under, so I'm learning as we go, but as well. So it's good to have these resources of people where to find things and so forth. So, but it's absolutely can be the idea is it's just a sharing information and resources, but it can be. We'd be happy if someone picked it up and said, we want to do this here, and we'll share the information that we have. Like any great project, I think, and just people can have it. And one thing we're looking at doing is having the information, like not the experience and the resource, but the information free online as well, where people can have it as an ebook. All our handouts, it's 220 pages of information. That's a collection of information. So that's a way of just sharing the information.
Awesome.
But we really want to we want to be protective of having this as a collection, creating community, and not just being this online community, but it has potential to be online, and that's why we've added the blog and stuff like that. It'd be great to have
like a community center where people can come in or access, or even like counseling. Here's where I'm at. I've been a mom for 6 months. This is what's happening. This is what I'm not sure about, and being able to talk to someone. And you feel better.
Yeah, or just know that and they have a lot of good drop-in centers for play centers and stuff in the city, but a center where you can just show up between these hours and there's going to be someone there to help you.
Right.
You don't know what's going to be going on, but it's going to be a spot where people can go. And we have a few people in the community. I run an event space downtown that Hugh's been to, so that's going to be one of the landing spots. But we're looking at setting up some other ones. One on the east end where there's a person doing some stuff as well, but having the resources in different locations as well. So.
That's great. So I guess people can get in touch online anywhere, but who should get in touch? Parents, I guess. Soon-to-be parents.
Anyone that really wants to be in. We call it my web designer, so where she said called the conscious parenting movement. So it's anyone that wants to be involved. It could be that you want to be involved as a parent that wants to share information with new parents, or you want to be. That could be a good resource, or it could be a professional person that wants to provide their resources and talk about joining the community. Awesome. It could be another person in another city that wants to start their own group and wants to look at how we're going about it. So it's anyone that's passionate about honoring their children, and then please contact us and we'll see how we can work together.
All right. That's great, Rob. I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron's going to be getting in touch.
I have some people I would love to refer to.
I'm happy for this opportunity, and it's last time I was here for something a lot different, but this is something that I kind of look at. It's kind of started off as kind of a one-man show, but it's growing, and I think 2.5 years ago was a little bit early for this project, but now I think there's a movement towards that. I'm feeling it's the right time, and I'm happy that you guys support these projects and get some information about this is what it's all about.
And the word can get out, and people can get in touch with you from across the country, and if they want to do something in Vancouver, Montreal, or St. John's, they can do that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Rob. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
So consciousparenting.ca is the site, and I guess that's it for the show today, Aaron.
That's it for me for the summer almost.
Oh, for the summer.
Well,
we'll see what happens.
Environment Friday show.
We're going to work it out.
Yeah.
We're going to keep it going.
For sure. We'll
one way or another. Maybe change it up a little bit, but we're going to have to figure out what to do without Ahmed next week.
That's right.
So anyway, thanks, Rob, again for coming in, and Aaron for doing this this season, and Ahmed for doing it this co-op term, and Dan, of course, for doing it every day. So just want to say tune in on Monday. We'll be back for more Liquid Lunch. Jeanette Burke will be here then, and stay tuned for Wealth Management and You with Susan Allen coming up in about 5 minutes right here on ThatChannel.com.
Cadillac bills, check out the oil my Cadillac spills. Matter of fact, candy paint Cadillac kills. So check out the hose my Cadillac fills.
20-inch wide, 20-inch high. Oh, don't you like my 20-inch ride? 20-inch thighs make 20-inch eyes. Hoping for American 20-inch pies. Pretty ass clothes.